So,
Good morning.
good morning.
So it's our second podcast of the second season
Yep,
in the second month of the year.
in the eve of the Super Bowl.
Eve of the Super Bowl, second month of the year 2022.
Yep. Are you a Rams fan or
I'm sort of a Rams fan. I mean, I'm a native Southern Californian. I did go to some Rams games growing up, but really I was a Raiders person. My dad took me to Raiders games.
you like it rough, huh?
That's sort of the topic of the day, isn't it, Rob?
That is true.
So I think it's a good lead-in for our topic, right?
We have another listener question.
We have a listener question. We're down to the bottom of the barrel on the listener questions, but it's a good one. So I'll read it out, and then we can kind of summarize it, and we can get right into it. So, Sensei, the listener question is, and I'm going to read it off. It says, "Dear Sensei, I would like to hear about a somewhat controversial but recurring topic about the sensei who imparts to their Aikido teachings with light blows or physical abuse to their students, justifying that this is an effective method to awaken the conscience and eliminate the fear of the student. What is your opinion on this?" So basically what I understand this meaning is, can you hit your students? And is it good to hit your students? In other words, does hitting your student teach the student?
Oh yeah, it teaches hitting the student. Well, maybe I should caveat this. Like, I do not believe in hitting the student.
Okay.
I have hit students in the past.
But you don't anymore.
I haven't in a long time, and I realize today the error of my ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I do understand the rationale behind hitting.
Okay, so assuming that we don't hit students in our school, you don't hit students. But,
I do not.
But just to back up for a second, assuming that we're going to discuss this, we can do a hypothetical and say hypothetically what the value is of hitting a student. Heavily qualifying this.
Yeah. So if
Theoretically.
we play the devil's advocate, I don't know why the devil needs an advocate. All he wants is your soul. One comedian said. But yeah, like the thing about it is, like, it is from a generation gone by, and it was a very effective technique.
Why is giving negative reinforcement? How does that work as a teaching tool?
Well, the thing is that in the old days there was this immediacy. You only learn martial arts in a clan or family, and you're going to be using that martial arts, bukiwaza, weapons technique, whatever it is, on the battlefield soon. And so you got to get them into the mindset to learn, absorb right away. And so the thing about it is, it comes down to like subconscious programming.
Okay.
The fastest way to get you into that subconscious state, bam, across the face.
Wake you up.
Not wake you up. Well, it wakes you up, but that fear drops your nervous system into a lower brainwave state, so that you can just absorb. You're alert. You're absorbing information because you're so afraid.
Hmm. So is that what? So I'm looking at the question again, because something you just said struck me, where he says light blows or physical abuse. It doesn't say. It doesn't say clock the person.
Light blows, hard blows, all the same.
Yeah.
So you might as well just do it hard, right? So like if you just go like across the face,
it's pointless.
It may not be strong enough, or it could. See, the thing is, soft or hard, it could still be humiliating.
So how does it's one thing that keeps coming to my mind with this, and maybe it's a tangent you're going to slap me back off of, but isn't this sort of like how when people learn through adversity, like if you fail or you're doing something in life, you hear about this a lot about people, especially like really rich people or really successful people. They don't tell you like what a great childhood they had. They don't tell you about how much candy they had as a child or how many pairs of shoes they had. They tell you like, I had one pair of shoes. I suffered my entire life, and that's how I got strong. Or like David Goggins, he'll tell you like, I weighed 500 pounds. I had to run on broken shins. I wonder, like, is there an element of this is that you have to suffer?
There is. There's this element of suffering. It's also natsukashi, like sentimental. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I didn't even have a right arm back then. I have one now, but so you guys don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's a generation past, right? Feeling, as Mike Van Ruth would say, feelings. Who issued you those?
Because what I think of when I read this is, I mean, I'm sure you have stories too. Is like I'm raised in a Catholic family. My parents went to Catholic school, and they went to Catholic school in the 40s and 50s, and they were routinely beaten by nuns and priests when they were little children. They were not bad kids, but they said, like, if you were out of line, the nuns would come by with a stick, and you had to put your hands on the table, wham, and smack them like crazy. And that was the learning environment they had as not adults, little children.
But see, what was the learning environment that they're trying to create?
Discipline.
No, fear.
Fear
creates adherence.
Right.
Which creates quote unquote discipline.
Right.
Right. But then the thing is that works for a certain group of people. Anyone outside that group, the standard deviation of that 1% or whatever it is, those people fall by the wayside.
Right.
Because not everyone learns that way. So the thing is that if I want to teach you something, I want you to be paying attention and listening to whatever I say. Hi, sensei, hi. So that's adherence. But if you go, I don't know, if you're looking off into space, you're not really listening, you think this person's not listening. And so, like, you're creating a distraction. But the thing is that just because the person doesn't look you in the eye or is looking away or asks a question doesn't mean they're not learning.
Right.
But the thing is, in the past, it was too disruptive to have two or three different types of learning groups.
Right.
Right. Because we're going to battle in 60 days. We're going to march out and meet these guys in 60 days. You got to learn these techniques. You got to learn how to use this halberd. Right. And so shut up, bam, across the face.
Yeah.
And then you're like, because everybody's trying to learn, so no distractions.
Right. And also learn only one thing in a certain way.
In a certain way.
Yeah.
Today, it's not like that. We know there's all these different ways to learn. You can learn visually,
emotionally,
auditory, kinesthetic, right? Through taste, through hearing, to smell, all these different ways to learn that they didn't have.
And we're more inclusive for all types of human beings.
Well, yeah, because we're
more enlightened.
We're more learned, right? We understand the psyche, we understand the id, the inner child, all those different things.
And we're not trying to create soldiers out of every human being.
Right. But if you were trying to create soldiers, right?
So I got another question for you. I actually think this question is a great question for a martial arts school. One of the things I was thinking is, I know when my mom and dad had me and my sister, my mom said to my father, no hitting. We were hit, but no hitting. But I think there's another level to violence because it's in our culture now. People talk about microaggressions and how verbal attacks are violence.
Yeah.
I was raised that you could say anything and it's not violence. Like,
right. Well, you could say anything because as long as they're not hitting you.
Right. I was told, like, look, and I was also raised like, look, if you have to get in a fist fight, get in a fist fight. Not a problem. But we were also told, like, look, anything that says anything to you, it's not violence. But today, a lot of stuff is verbal is violence. But I don't want to get into that. What I was going to ask you is, though, specifically to like martial arts schools, have we gone to the sort of this other level where we can be violent in our words? In terms of teaching, is there? Have we? That's what I wanted to ask. That's the new. Is that the new violence? Is our words?
Well, that's the new violence, but there's no longer the new thing is you don't do that. But,
okay.
So you have a generation. 2 generations ago was the slap. That's the physical violence.
Right.
Physical.
And we stopped that.
Yeah, the slap to create adherence. And then it went from there to the verbal slap of adherence. And now we don't do that. We try to reason with you because you're a learned person. So if I explain it to you in a certain sense where, look, I understand that you were hurt as a child, but we don't do that, blah, blah, and all these things. It's just been easier to go, you want to fight somebody? You fight me. Bam, across the face.
Right.
And, we come from a very strict tradition. And there are times when I heard Furuya Sensei go, you want to fight somebody? Fight me. And as a student, I picked that same thing up. And then when I became the dojo enforcer, I was like, you want to fight somebody? Fight me. Right. You want to throw that person down? I'm right here.
Right.
Or I'd say to people like, hey, like I would see a visitor would come and beat up like a kid or someone.
And you have to step in.
And I would step in and I'd be like, onegai shimasu, and then I would just cream that
So
person.
do you think that for a martial arts school in the 2100s, for it to be effective, that it needs someone who has to carry the violence around?
That's the hard part, because
It seems like it does. Someone's got to hold the violence in a bucket to protect it, right?
Well, that's true, right? What's the old saying? It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. But that's the hard part today, right? Like, war is only for young people. That's why they chose them at 19. And then in the 19 is that song from the 80s.
Yeah.
They chose them at 19 because those people don't know any better.
Right.
They're just run off and do the thing. Today, you couldn't get 19-year-olds to do that. They're way more self-reflective or woke, as they say, that they're like, I'm not going to kill anybody. But in those days, you're like, go kill those people. And they're like, all right.
Except for the people who self-select in a professional army.
Right. But I mean, we're talking about like drafting these people.
No, I totally get what you're saying.
So that's the idea, that if you're going to have to do some violence on someone, you want them to be around a certain age.
Right.
Because they don't know any better. But once you get older, you know it better. Right? I know if I punch someone in the face, closed fist, I'm probably going to break my hand. And I got to go to work on Monday. So, yeah, I'll just do open hand that day. No, not that you would do that, but
well, that's exactly what I was thinking, is don't close your fist.
But see, but the next level is I'm going to just open hand them. And then the next level is like, I got to go to work on Monday. I can't go to jail.
Right. You start escalate.
Yeah, and then it gets to a certain place where it goes de-escalate. Right. And so even the philosophy of Aikido is just one of nonviolence, right? So that's a very common philosophy for Aikido, right? I read an article about the creator of Krav Maga, who said something like the effect that the goal of a martial arts is to become so strong that you don't have to hurt people. And you go, oh, does that sound like Aikido? But I thought they were they're the killers. They're
super effective street guys. But so that kind of still leaves us with the question of, we think that the question that the person's asking, is there a place for violence to teach? And we sort of said, like, no, we don't do violence on students. But does this still lurk in any dojo today? Does it lurk in our dojo in any way?
It lurks in every dojo.
It does,
right? But we are become.
How does it lurk? Like if it's like this fish that every once in a while pops above the surface, how would it pop above the surface in our dojo? And unintentionally or accidentally?
Well, usually it's done now in a chicken SHIT way.
Okay.
Right? Because then you do it in a way in which, oh, sorry about that. Or you throw them once hard. So one time we had this visitor come. And I was in the doghouse with Furuya Sensei. And this guy came and he was muscling everybody in the room. And then I threw him super hard once. And then 3 more times, like, easy. Super soft.
Yeah.
And then he got up and he's like, what? Oh my God, you're so good. You got to just give it to me. And I go, Aikido's not about that. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and then after that, like, he totally changed his vibe and his tone. And then afterwards, Furuya Sensei said, hey, how was class? And he's like, oh, it was really good. And he's like, the students here are so good, especially that guy. He's the best. And then, like, the wave of people split, and he's like pointing at me, and then because since he's mad at me, he was like all mad. And he's like, I want him to throw me harder, and he wouldn't. But that's that thing. Like, automatically, there's no competition on Aikido, but then automatically there's competition.
It creates competition.
But then that same thing is what that microaggressions, passive aggressive thing, where I throw you down hard. As the atemi is this hidden slap.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to throw you that hard. Like, we were trained to go like this. Bam. Oh, sorry about that. Bam. Oh, sorry about that. But inside we're going like.
Have you ever? So this is a question about violence. I mean, I have in my mind, I have my own examples, but I'm just curious from your perspective, or maybe not perspective is not the right word, experience. So you've been doing Aikido 30 years or more.
32
years.
Month.
So it's 32 years. I think I know the answer to this, but this is more just a question for you an opportunity for you to talk about your experience. how many times do you think in those 30 years have you actually used atemi to get people to comply in a technique?
All the
Other
time.
than the time when you hit me during
No,
Kokidosa.
all the time. I used to hit people all the time.
Yeah.
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 Right in the stomach. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Cut really hard,
Now,
strongly down.
when we were younger, and Furia was teaching, did you conceal it, or were you sneaky about it, or were you
No,
pretty much like, I'm just going to unload on these people?
I
I can imagine some of the techniques you used to do, like Yakuhanmi, Ikkyo, and it was some of your like techniques you really like to do it on. But I'm just curious, like, did you hide it?
I didn't actually use a whole lot of atemi.
Yeah.
Because I have two things which don't work well with atemi. I'm fast, and I have really good footwork.
And so the timing doesn't work with it.
Don't need the atemi.
Yeah.
But getting back to the question, though,
Mm-hmm.
right? You use this hit, you use this physical abuse, and all those things to create adherence,
Right.
right? And so, one time we were doing, the class was starting, and Sensei was doing the warm up himself, and the student in the middle of the warm up just goes, "Burp." And then in my mind I go, I'm gonna hose this person, and then I just smash that person.
Yeah.
Right, but the thing is that's that level of abuse, physical abuse, right? Today I'd be like, come on, man. I would just say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right, and then afterwards, or I would take him aside and be like, hey, that's inappropriate, And then someone later on told me that same person's told him, oh yeah, I come to the dojo all the time drunk, and then he was just a bit drunk. We just didn't know it. But that's that thing. Like, you hit the student to one of two things: to wake them up, or to get them into that subconscious state.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about in this is it's not directly related to Aikido, but I mean, I'm not a Zen practitioner. I don't think you are, but do you think that maybe some of the history of where this is coming from and where it may come from in martial arts is that in the Zen tradition there is this practice of hitting the Zen students to awaken them? Do you think that has any?
It is definitely probably from that tradition where they hit you with the kyosaku, bam, and then they come up and they touch you on the shoulder, and then you bow, and then they hit you. They don't just like beat you,
but they hit you.
They hit you with a thud. It just goes like that, but they don't go like whack.
Yeah, they're not killing you. They're just kind of like.
But it's supposed to wake up your spirit, right? Because they see you getting a little bit drowsy or whatnot. So yeah, I mean, people could do it from that Zen point of view, right? But then, how many of these people are Zen priests?
Well, our teacher was.
Well, but I mean, other people, right?
Yeah. No, I'm talking about, like, maybe in our tradition, whether there could be some element of that.
Could be, but I don't prescribe to that.
Yeah.
I'm not a Zen aficionado.
Yeah.
And so I don't prescribe to hitting people. I want to. People do stuff, and I just go, oh, all right, man. But then now, I mean, I do something different. Mm-hmm. Like, one time I went to this dojo and I was teaching, and nobody's doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, and then at the very first, when it started happening, I just went, forget these people.
Right.
And then I'm not teaching them anything. And I went, no, don't be like that. So I just changed the technique to something that's really rough, and then I just went around the room roughing every person up. And then, like that, everybody's paying attention.
So when you say that when you roughed people up, was it that people had to pay attention because they were getting physically active? Like their bodies were getting thrown down?
They were getting thrown down, and then I would just jam their technique and then reverse their techniques. And then I just went around dominating every person in the room. And then after that, every person was like, yes, sensei. But then that's not the right way either. But the whole part of this whole student-teacher interaction, they invite me out to teach a class, they should pay attention and learn, right? I teach my best, they learn to their best.
Yeah.
But if I'm there teaching and they're not learning to their best, part of me just goes, why even come here? You're wasting my time. As Furia Sensei would say, I don't want to waste your time, you don't want to waste my time. But then in that moment, I just lost my temper, and I was like, okay, this is how it's going to be? All right, it's game time. And so I just switched the technique to something really, really rough. And then, I like it rough, but then they couldn't take it to a level to rough me up. And so then after that, they just adhere. They're like, oh, hi, sensei, whatever you want.
Do you think that there are any schools today that are still doing this?
No.
It's over.
There might be. And it's, we are rough and we do those things. 2 reasons why they don't exist. Internet, social media transparency, litigation. Either of those 2 things get out,
you're done.
School's over. Doesn't matter for what reason. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We signed a contract. Bill says you signed a contract. Says I can hit you. Doesn't matter. The court of public opinion would destroy your school. And so you could do it, but then you were saying yes, 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 hit me now. But it could easily be later on. You go, well, I never said yes. And then he held my car keys, so I had to let him hit me. Whatever reason you're going to come up with, and then I'm like, no.
So let me ask you a question, because
this is for you.
I mean, I'm a lawyer, so automatically my brain is kind of turning gears. I mean, this school teaches martial arts. People get hit, so without becoming overly legal about this, how does one distinguish between a punitive blow and a blow that's given as part of the practice?
Well, punitive blows just, listen to what I'm saying, Bill, across the face.
All right. Okay.
Right? So in my own Aikido teaching career, I have evolved from the slap to the verbal slap, and now I'm trying to not do any of that.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to reason with you. I try to take people aside and go, hey, this is what you're doing. They talk about the sandwich. This is what you're doing good. This is what you're doing bad. But this is what you're doing good. So please just keep doing this thing, but don't do the bad thing. So I was reading this article leading up to the Super Bowl about the Rams and how, this whole idea about corporal punishment. So
what do you mean by corporal punishment?
So the modern boot camp actually came from the football. So after
American football. Okay.
After the war, they recruited all these, supposedly the Army recruited all these football coaches, and the football coaches said, this is how you run a training camp. And then that became the basis of boot camp. And so there's this idea that, when you make a mistake, they use corporal punishment in terms of push-ups, runs, running lines, and stuff like that.
Stuff that they did in the military.
They did in the military when you make a mistake. So if you miss the free throw in the game, you're running laps the next day.
All right.
Or even that night. You do something bad, you're running, you're doing push-ups, you're doing something physical, corporal punishment.
Breaking your body down.
As a punishment.
Okay.
Right? And so one of the interesting things about this Super Bowl is that the Rams were one of the first teams to adopt this biometrics data thing where they constantly monitor the players.
Okay.
And they found out that one of the things is that when you do this corporal punishment, and you make them run, you make them do lines and all these different things, was causing them to become overworked.
Okay.
And so because they became overworked, they would start losing games.
So they're getting injured.
And getting injured because they're too tired. And so this computer program that the Rams are using would give them a score and tell them, oh, this is the day they should be resting. This is the day when they took too many steps. So they really started to measure the steps, and I'll link the article in this podcast. And it said something about walking, that they walked too much because they did too much exercise.
Literally walking.
Well, no, because they're measuring the steps.
Okay.
So they did too many steps, which caused them to become burnt out, overworked, and then they would get injured. And so they took that from the guy that was their head athletic director was from the English Premier League, and they used that, and the team, supposedly, I guess the team went undefeated and injury free for the whole year.
Wow. And
I also read this article about I think it was a basketball team that this year they didn't do any squats or leg exercises during the competitive season. And this is the first year that they went injury free or something like that.
So what you're saying is basically that there's this old school mentality that is using exercise as physical punishment.
Yeah.
And that physical punishment is literally hurting people's bodies in 2 ways. One, it's making them less physically capable.
Yeah.
And that people aren't listening to the science component of this. and they're just kind of like being Neanderthal about it.
Yeah, I mean, but this is the generation where the NFL is really changing. Like I sometimes watch these YouTube videos where they go, like the one I watched was about the New England Patriots head nutritionist, and they followed him around, and then he's like, going to all these, they have this huge kitchen, and they're making all this food, and he's like talking about the menus and all the stuff, and then they interviewed like 4 old players, and then one old player was like, "Oh yeah, game day, loved it, because they give us free food, and I can eat all the hot dogs I can eat." And he's like, "Yeah, every game, 2 hot dogs before the game," and you're like, "Oh, gross." And then they showed, this is after Brady left the Patriots, but they showed all the food that they were making. Every person has a different preference or has a different need.
Right.
This person, because they can't eat, they need a lot of protein, but not a lot of fat. So they're eating bison. This person is a vegetarian. This person is vegan. Oh, so they're doing, and then they had all these cooks preparing all these meals. And then they show them getting off the bus and everybody's like getting their meals. Because they said in game day, I want to say that they feed them 4 to 5 times.
4 to 5 times on the game day?
But on practice days, only 2 times. But then, so they have to make all this food so that they're ready to go.
Wow.
And then compare that to the guy, we get all the hot dogs we want on game day.
So I'm curious, this is super interesting. Do you think that there's any component of this, like in the history of our training in terms of using, I mean, like we talked about the story of like Suburi when I was late to Iaido. Can you think of like any physical punishments that we've had to go through?
Oh yeah, people, Sensei would make us roll a lot, sitting seiza on the wood. You would receive an atemi from a sensei or a senior student. All kinds of different stuff like that. Or just being yelled at.
Yeah.
Dressed down in front of everybody, and then sensei takes it out on everybody, and then everybody takes it out on you.
Right.
Which is definitely like that's a different military method, right?
Right. It's like if someone makes a mistake, everyone has to do push-ups.
Yeah, we're all in it together type thing. I mean, we never had to do push-ups, but I mean, there are things where you were just like, "Oh my God, dude, can you not make sensei mad?
Right.
Can you just do what he's telling you to do?" And then
I mean, we had to very much try to dodge his anger.
Yeah. And so that's the thing, right? If you look at this, how they're really starting to understand physical performance, what you eat, it becomes really important. And then also, how you train. So Furia Sensei's model was 7 days a week. You got to be here 7 days a week.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of guys train almost 7 days a week.
Right.
But is that good from a burnout standpoint? No.
Yeah.
And so every person who ever did that only lasts 10 years.
Right.
If you look, there's most of them only if we were able to get the data back from the old days, from my era, from the 90s. Now that I think about it, most of those people can only keep it up for 10 years.
Right.
And I never did. People always say, "Oh, you must have trained every day." Not really.
Right.
So during the summer when school wasn't in, I would train sometimes 7 days.
Right.
But there'd be times where I went away, partied, hung out, and just come back. Sensei would yell at me.
She's the only person. I mean, I know when I was in law school, I trained almost every day. But I think the only person I know who, day in and day out, trained every day was Ken.
Well, there were a few in the 90s. We don't want to name names.
Yeah, no, I know, I understand.
But there were a few different people in the 90s that trained 7 days a week. But think about them. How many?
They're not here.
Yeah. Well, how many left by 2000?
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Because too burnt. Too burnt
It's
out.
very hard to do.
Yeah. I mean, so that's the hard part about it. Like if you train physically this hard for this long. But yeah, so it's this idea that 7 days a week training, right? Is it good for the student to train 7 days? No. And then when I was a student in the 90s, I trained 3 to 5, sometimes 7, sometimes 0. When I was in grad school, I trained religiously 3 days a week, but I trained myself. Probably, I went to the gym at least 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And when I was in the 90s, I overtrained because I still did Aikido a lot, and I still went to the gym every day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So it's this idea that corporal punishment, albeit good to create adherence, could end up hurting the performance of the student.
Right. Right. And some people, some people believe that they have to physically suffer. I mean, there's this misbelief in, I mean, you've been a personal trainer before you were a doctor. There are some people who believe that if they're not in pain, they have not.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain group of people that believe that.
Yeah, if I don't feel it, it must not be working.
Yeah.
And like, is not necessarily true either.
Yeah.
We used to have these 2 students that used to come. They're teenagers. They trained for a couple of years, not more than that. Skinny high school kids, over the 6 feet tall. They're both right now probably 6'8".
Oh my God.
And the dad told me that, oh yeah, they don't train anymore. But their dad told me, oh yeah, they used Aikido several times. And I was like, several times? He's like, yeah. And he told me all the different stories. And I was like, but those kids were the most unmotivated. They didn't apply themselves. They didn't train every day, but they still were able to use Aikido. So we didn't corporally punish them, but they still got the value of the physical technique out of it.
Yeah. So I think we've talked about this before. I think kind of what you're talking about is like the change in style from the taskmaster to coaching.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And the reason why I had to evolve is because I have children, for one, but it's in my heart. I cannot do that to somebody. I can't hit you. I am like the person who's like so on your side. But I'm so on your side that I'm going to get mad because you're not doing it right.
Right.
But then in my heart, I have to go like, wait. My own style is I try to correct you 2 or 3 times.
And then you get frustrated.
And then, even if you don't do it, then I don't say anything else.
Right.
Because I understand that you can't hear it.
Right.
As opposed to fruit sensor to be like, your left foot, your left foot.
The most famous teaching.
Your other left foot. You know what? You should just quit.
Right.
And dude, it's pretty much 100%. Once he said that, they quit.
Yeah.
But then, is that what they needed in that moment?
But
they just didn't know yet, right? And so that's the thing, is that we could say something to people to inspire them, or we could say, we could say something mean which inspires. We could say something mean which causes them to quit. We could say something nice which inspires. It's really hard to say what is the right thing to say.
But why is that probably the most, like if you ask every senior Aikido student who studied under Fruit Sensei, it's almost to the letter that everyone can remember that exchange. But if you survived it.
Right. But that's the thing, is that like, it's not the words that are hurting, it's the intention behind it. So one time I had this student, right, and he's a couple years younger than me. And so he's kind of rough with people. And so I took him aside and I said, hey man, like, you can't be like that. And your role here is he was already a black belt, is to help me figure out the next generation.
Right.
I said, we're about the same age, we're both in good shape, so I'm probably not going to die before you. And then I'm much higher ranked than you. So there's no chance of you becoming the chief instructor here.
Right.
But what you can do is help me figure out who this next person is for generation next, and train those people.
Right.
And then later on, all he heard was, you're not good enough to be the teacher here. Wait, we're almost the same age. How are you going to be the teacher?
Right.
I'm 5th Dan, you're 1st Dan. Like, how are you going to... But that's all that person could hear in that moment, was, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to be the teacher. Like, what? No, like, we're the same age. We're the same, like, I have more experience. Like, how are you going to be the teacher?
Right.
There's like 6 levels removed. 6 people would have to die for you to become the teacher. Yeah. But all that person heard was, wah, 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 wah. You'll never be as good enough to be the teacher. Wah, wah, wah. You're like, whoa, right? And so in that moment, you would have just said, stop doing that. Bam, across the face. I will stop doing that.
Yeah.
And then they become afraid of your hand. And then it's that whole thing about the dog collar that shocks the dog.
Yeah.
Every time it runs out of the yard, it gets shocked.
Yeah.
And then at some point, you just take the collar off, and they're too afraid to run toward the end because they don't want to get shocked.
Yeah.
And then sooner or later, the hand never even comes up. It's just a look. And then the look causes them to go, okay, I won't do that anymore.
I mean, it kind of comes down to, I think, that how one wants to teach, right?
Well, yeah. No, it's the spectacles at which one wears. What year is it? I put my glasses on, it's 1920. I put my glasses on, it's 1980. I put my glasses on, it's 2022. Which way whatever glasses you're going to wear dictates how you're going to teach them. In 1642, you slap them, right? In 1942, you're still slapping them, right? But in, 2022, nobody's slapping anybody.
Yeah.
I slap you, you're going to go out and in the front of the dojo going, I got slapped by Ito Sensei and, all this stuff. And here showing the thing. And then the court of public opinion, kills this place. It's, you got like 10,000 one-star reviews. You might want to go here, but he hits the students. You're like, but in the confines of teaching, right? So like, that's the hard part. Even though you and the student even made a pact or even signed something that says you can hit them.
It won't help.
It's not the student. It's the residual, the people around them that goes, I don't want to be hit. Yeah. And then they go, I don't want to ever go there. And believe me, I know, 100% I know that there are people that have quit this school because they're like, I don't want David to beat me up. I saw David beat someone up, and I'm not down with that. Because when I first became the teacher and many years after that, I was still one of those people. Like I always talk about this, like it was the hardest transition was going from being a warrior to being a teacher.
Yeah.
The warrior's death is to be cut down in their prime on the field of battle. The teacher's death is to live long enough to ensure that there's a second generation.
It goes on.
And so you have to like totally change your focus. I mean, dude, I didn't care. When I was a student, I was like, man, woman, child, old person, young person, they're all getting it because I do Aikido for real.
Right.
And then you have this whole group of people that hate you. And you go, why do you hate me? And they go, oh, because you did this thing to me.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting story. One time I went out to a bar with some of the students. And we're talking, and this guy comes up the table, and one of the students goes, oh, he's done Aikido. And then I go, oh, you should come to our dojo. And he goes, I used to be at your dojo. And I was like, oh, really? I don't remember that. He's like, yeah, and I left because of you. And I was all, oh. And then he just went on to this whole tirade about he studied Aikido in Japan and Aikido's not like this. And then I roughed him up. You think that's Aikido? That's not Aikido.
Wow.
And then inside me, I was like, kick this person's butt. Take him outside and work him over. And then I said, no.
Oh, man.
Listen to what he has to say because there could be an element of truth to it. So I just sat there and Gaman persevered and listened. I studied with this person in Japan and I do Aikido in the forest like this. And then that's nothing about what you're doing. You're just a thug and you're all these different things. I was like, okay. Right. But in my mind, I was like, just kill him.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I had already killed him.
Right. You already done it.
Yeah. I killed him. He left the dojo. Right. But then three people lost out. I lost out. He lost out. And dojo lost out, and then maybe the fourth is Aikido lost out.
Yeah.
I don't know if he still does Aikido or not. But that's the thing is that like that warrior mentality that I have, which is the same thing. You're not listening, psh, across the face. Hi, Sensei, I'm listening now. But then where did it get me? All my deshis that underwent the old school way, they're gone.
Yeah.
And that's why like there's the joke at this school is don't go upstairs unless you want to get yelled at.
Yeah.
Because you come into my space and I'm like, what did you say?
Yeah.
And then I start yelling at them. I don't beat them up, but I dress them down and lecture them about this. Now, today I don't. I just go, oh, that's interesting. And then I go like, oh, I should probably talk to them later. I'm not so mad.
So I think that was kind of what I was asking earlier is we talked many episodes earlier about evolution in Aikido. Like, where is the evolution in Aikido? There's technique evolution, there's philosophy evolution, but it seems like for us, some of the evolution certainly is in the teaching violence, like where the violence is in teaching. Like we've evolved past hitting students, hitting each other, the verbal technique in terms of how students are taught, less verbal violence, more collaboration. Do you think that evolution is benefiting students? Do you think students learn better under this system?
I talk about this a lot with other people, and when they ask me that same question, I always say, we won't know until the end. We won't know until the end if Furuya Sensei's method, strict, rough, is better than my method, which is nicer. I don't know how to put it. And so, but that's the hard part. We don't know. And then what am I really trying to develop? Who am I trying to develop? Everybody in the old days was a killer.
Yeah.
You know, I always laugh and likened it to, you come to the dojo, it's like gladiators arena. Everybody's beating the heck out of each other. But then did they develop themselves as human beings?
Right.
And I would largely say majority of them did not.
Yeah.
Especially as they, the ones that are closer to Furuya Sensei, because he wasn't really modeling that behavior either.
Right.
Right. So today I do advocate that people train hard, but then I don't like it when they beat up on each other.
Right.
Right.
Or beat up on people that can't protect themselves.
Yeah. Like I don't mind two people going at it. Right. But then I get mad if they roll into other people, if somebody gets hurt or whatever it is, because you should have restraint. And what am I really teaching people? Right. Am I teaching, if I slap you, I gain adherence.
Right.
And if you stay, I have now developed a follower. Right. You will do whatever I say because you don't, what'd you say? You don't, but that's how I'm not trying to develop people like that. I'm trying to develop balanced, kind, compassionate human beings, right? Through Aikido as a vehicle. So today, when I see people getting rough, I just think, immature, lacks restraint. Like when I see like some famous Shihan, like roughing people up, slapping people, throwing people into the audience and whatnot, I just think,
yeah,
that's weak. Because the thing that you want to be effective, you want to be effective, all you got to do is this. You're effective, right? That's totally effective. None of this action is all that effective. Like this, throwing people down, not effective.
What do you mean by that?
The gun is the most effective weapon. It gained adherence right away. What'd you say? Oh, hey, right? Every Steven Seagal movie. Oh, okay, Jack. Whatever you want to say, right? Like that you gain adherence right away. You just show them the gun. What did you say? Shows the gun. Everyone just goes, okay, you're the boss. Master Shu's book, Life is Too Short for Bad Kung Fu. He even talks about that. Like the evolution of martial arts died with the introduction of firearms. And so that's this whole thing, right? So if we kind of tease out all these different methods, if I slap you, what am I really trying to do? Am I trying to wake you up? Or am I trying to gain adherence to create a follower? Right? So I want to make my life easy. I want an easy life as a teacher. Everybody listens all the time, does whatever I say when I say it. No one ever speaks up against the teacher. Why? Why? Right? Today, I don't want that.
Yeah.
If I'm going to make a misstep, which I make missteps all the time, I want someone to go, dog poop, watch out. I go, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
But the old days, you just like, I stepped in dog poop. It's your fault. Lick it off my shoe.
Right.
What? And then you're like licking it off. Hi, master, whatever you tell me to do, I will do. I will sit in the rain. I will do all these things, to be your student because I'm trying to gain something. But what are you trying to gain? Remember, you're only fighting from 19 to 30.
Yeah. After
30, after 40, no fighting.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because recovery time's too slow, not fast enough, all these different reasons. Got family, can't show up to the battle, wife won't let you. Super Bowl Sunday, can't make it to class. All these things get in the way of the battle. So that's this idea of the adherent. It's just for adherence. But what are you trying to do? Right? If I'm going to slap you, there has to be a reason and intention why I hit you so that you'll listen. Well, why do I want you to listen? Well, I want you to listen so that you make my life easier and you become my follower. I'm not hitting you to make you better. I'm hitting you to make my life easier. Right? And so that's the hard part. That's things I understand today. Oh, I'm just hitting them to make my life easier. So it's not about that. It's not about the people who are, you're already a lawyer. That means you already have a certain level of drive and motivation to become good at something. Aikido is just a physical movement, so it wouldn't be that hard.
But for some people, if they're very young and they don't have developed a system of discipline, they might need more.
They might need more, but then they've already been slapped enough.
Yeah.
Life has already beaten them way worse than I'll ever beat them. So if I slap them, aren't I just adding another layer, more pain? When really, what they really need is like Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting. All right, bring it in. The guy's crying. You're like, okay, okay, all right. And then he can move on in life, right? So that's the hard part about hitting people. What is the intention? And then when you do it, what's the ROI, right? Return on your investment. You're going to slap them, but then it created a certain level of exposure to risk. And then it didn't work. And then you slapped them and they're gone. And you're like, God, I shouldn't have slapped that person. Right? So that's the hard part. Even light blows. Because you don't really even know where someone's line is.
Yeah.
Is their line hitting them?
Really
brandishing?
It's really interesting you talk about lines, because what I was thinking of is this is not hitting, but when you're in the first cue, first dawn, when you practice with higher level students or teachers, you a lot of times, I remember especially in the old dojo or earlier time, you would get flattened a lot.
You pounded on them.
You get pounded. I remember getting pounded for years. Just absolutely. If I remember first cue, it was like when you got to first cue in the old dojo, it was like having a target on your back. It was like it was open season. You would get into the dojo, you change, you get on the mat. If there was a black belt there, they were like onegashimasu, and then for the next 10 minutes before class, you were just absolutely pounded on, and then you start class and you're like, and then they start the class, and then every senior black belt would just come and thrash you for that hour, and then the class is over, they would thrash you for another 10, 15 minutes. And that was like for that whole year.
Right. Is that wrong?
Well, no. Here's the thing. Like, it's probably not right. On the other hand, if you submit to it.
Well, but let's see. Like again, it goes back to what is our agreement, right? So
I'm trying to think through this. Like, I'm just trying to figure it out because.
Do you know why they do that?
No, I'm not sure I do know why.
Because at that certain point, right, third cue is where everyone drops out. Third cue and third dawn are
those are the touch points.
The most dangerous levels.
Yeah.
Third cue, third dawn. Both third cue and third dawn have the exact same question. Is this effective?
Right.
Why do I want to be here? I don't know, all these different things. And so I'm not sure about other schools, but this school, that's where people usually drop out.
Right.
So the thing is that because you're got the level of second or first cue, black belt is on the way. So we need to toughen you up.
Right.
Make you into an Aikidoist.
Right.
Like Watanabe Sensei always says, oh, now your Aikido's starting to look like Aikido. At that level is where it starts to look like Aikido.
Right.
But the thing is that in our school, in our tradition, that was the level where you had to be in shape, you had to be ready for action, ready for anything. You had to be Aikido at that level.
Right.
Like they talk about this idea that when you are testing for first dawn, you're already first dawn.
Right. You have it in you.
Not you get over the line and then you become first dawn. When you were
first cue.
When you're ready for first dawn, you're already first dawn, even though you don't have the rank. Because you have gone through the rigors of.
So it's being built into you.
Yeah. And so, like the rough, you would have quit if you didn't like it rough. So after, second and first cues where they beat you up.
So you're saying it's like you're being forged in a sense.
Yeah. But see, no one's hitting you. They're just training really hard.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say is I'm just trying to see what the margins are to this, because I'm not saying anyone was hurting me. No, I wasn't being hurt. I'm just saying that the level of training for that year or 2 years, if you're counting second cue, it's a level of, I don't want to use the word violence, but it had a level of
malice.
Yes.
Well, some people it had the level of malice, and perhaps yours was a little bit rougher because of how you came into the school.
Yeah, I definitely felt that.
Because you came in with another teacher, following another teacher, and then was left there by your teacher.
Right.
And then your teacher had like a bad reputation.
Yeah.
But the point is that at that level, they want to know if you really want Aikido.
Right.
And so they're gonna train really hard.
They're gonna test you.
Today, you could still do that, but now we have to preface it. Hey, Bill, now that you're second cue, it's game time.
Do you want that?
we're going to train hard. And then you're like, and you're already there. So you're like, yeah, I like to train hard.
Right.
Because at this school, I don't know about other school, but at this school, everybody likes to train hard.
Right.
There's nobody here that goes, oh, I just come here for the light
no
workout.
one's like that.
Everybody's trying like really hard.
Yeah.
And so you have to have the conversation. Hey man, now that you're second cue, it's game time, man. We're gonna get you into shape for black belt. And you're like, oh, thank you.
Right.
But back then they're like, oh, what rank are you? Oh, I'm second cue. You're staying for advanced class. I am? That's what happened to me. They go, you're staying for advanced class. And I go, okay.
Oh, what's that?
And then they go, do you know how to break fall? And I go, no. And they go, you do now. Bam, bam, bam. And you're hitting your leg, you're hitting your thigh, you're, smashing your groin, all this stuff. And then you're just like, okay.
Oh my God. I remember, you probably remember this better than I do. Remember when we used to just you do cross hand grab and we do
the handshake break falls.
Handshake break falls when you do like 50.
Yeah, at the starting of the starters of instructors workout, since it'd be like no warm up.
No warm up. 50 break falls.
50 handshake break falls, and that's the thing. It's like you had to be in shape. So there was a point one time when Furuya Sensei was alive and he got mad at us about something, right? And so talk about no adherence. Like he gets mad at us about something, right? And then he tells Mark T, this class, only ukemi.
Oh, I remember this story.
And then I was like this, whatever.
No problem.
So then rolls, break falls, jumping rolls, backward rolls, stand up, all those things. And I was just like rolling around in a circle, back the other way, rolling the other way. It was, to me, I was in shape. And my
so this is kind
good.
of off topic. Natalie and I were watching the Olympics. And so I don't understand how this works because like there's certain types of rolling that I can do, but when we roll all the way around the mat one direction and then we roll all the way around the mat the other direction, like in a big circle like this, I get a little bit dizzy when I do that. But we were watching the skaters, and I know like you as a teacher, high level teacher, how do they do like in place multi spinning without getting dizzy?
Well, but they're used to it,
so you can train your
like I am not in shape anymore, so I'm not used to it. But in the old days, I used to, so going back to that story, Sensei, we did forward rolls, backward rolls, jumping rolls, jumping over 3 people rolls,
right?
Break
I remember
falls,
that. Sure.
Jumping break falls, all these different rolls.
It was crazy. I totally remember it. I have absolutely clear memory of it.
And I was just, and the whole time I was just laughing. I had like the biggest smile on my face and laughing. So I
was getting gassed out. Yeah, I remember.
If Furuya Sensei is anything like me, he spies on you. So he's like, oh, David. And then he just gets mad because he was
trying to punish people.
Yeah, and I don't know if he was trying to punish me or not. I don't think so. But if he was trying to punish me, it
wasn't working.
Right? Because again, same thing. Corporal punishment, does it work?
Right.
So this idea, does corporal punishment work?
Sometimes.
It works in a very specific setting sometimes. So like the door's closed, you and me, I slap you to wake you up. But then if I slap you to wake you up, in that moment, you could go, what'd you do that for? And get all mad.
Right.
Right. And so that's the hard part. Corporal punishment, does it work? Do you really want, we don't create students like that anymore.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting because, I don't know. I think that there's definitely a group of us that there's a badge of pride to be part of the old group.
Yeah,
a little bit
because you made it through something.
Yeah, the experience,
the trial by fire. You came out on the other end.
But I think it's also part of that old group being part of the new group. It's like it's a continuity. It's not just that we were in the old group.
But do you have it in your heart to slap anyone?
No.
See. Then you can't create that continuity anymore, right? So there has to be a new paradigm.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. No one wants to hit anybody.
So did you see the movie Whiplash?
Oh, of course.
So do you remember the ending?
No.
So the ending is he's really physically abusive to this young kid, and the teacher is driving him, and then at the end, the drummer doesn't make it, and he has to drum, and then he drums. The teacher kicks the student out of the orchestra. He comes back and fills in to play this drums on the very last scene of the movie, and he does really, really well, and everyone says, oh my God, how great you are. So if you read about the conclusion as people analyze the conclusion, they talk about how the student one-upped the teacher and showed him and all these different things, but it's not about that. They missed the point from a traditional training standpoint. The traditional training standpoint is that one of the students once told me this thing, and this is what made me understand that thing, is that they say, when my children were born, he said, just remember this. Parents say yes out of fear and no out of love. And so when you watch the ending of Whiplash, if you ever watch it, that's the culmination of this whole idea that the teacher becomes your enemy.
I've heard this story.
And because the teacher's your enemy, you will work so hard to beat that person. Right? But the thing is that the teacher pushes you in a way by making you their enemy, and then it's to help you. In Japanese, they say the student has iji, right? Is willful, but you have to change that stubbornness and willfulness into konjo, fighting spirit, so that they can use that willfulness to get someplace in life. So when the teacher abuses this drumming student all the way to this point of making him quit or firing him, and then he comes back and plays perfectly, and everyone goes, see, he showed you up. He didn't need you anyways. No, it's not about that. It's that somebody had to say no.
Right.
Out of love for this person. I love you so much, I will make you good by slapping you in the face.
Yeah.
But the thing is, 99.99% of those people never make it.
Yeah.
And then you just have this hostility. I used to do Aikido. I hate that guy now. Because you didn't understand that teacher slapped you for your own good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think that it's a great question you asked me. Like, would I want to slap a student, or would you want to slap a student? And the answer is no.
But we do not slap them, not out of love. We do not slap them out of fear. I'm afraid if I slap you, you'll quit. I'm afraid if I slap you, you'll go to the authorities. I'm afraid that I don't hit you because I don't hit you because, I hit you because I love you, Bill.
Yeah, but I also think that, with me, I don't know about other people. I think with me, though, this is just between you and me, I think you also don't want to hit me because I think just intrinsically, I wouldn't go to the police, so I think you don't want to hit me because you think it's just not a good idea.
I don't want to hit you or anyone else because people hit me.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
Exactly.
Like all these things from the past, they come up and they remind me not to do these certain things. Exactly. So one time we had this seminar, and our dojo had this policy that the dojo must always be occupied 24/7.
By somebody.
So Furuya Sensei lived there, so majority of the time he was there. But sometimes when he would go out, he would say someone has to stay back to protect the dojo. So we had this really long seminar, and Furuya Sensei comes up to me and he said, "You're going to stay back and protect the dojo." And I was like, "Hi." And you have to wipe down all the mats by yourself. Hi. And then everyone went to lunch. And they all went to lunch, and I wiped the mats down, cleaned up, took the trash out, filled all the water buckets, did all the chores. They come back, all right, class is on. No one brought me a sandwich. No one brought me a bottle of water. No one let me go to the bathroom. Nothing. Because at that time, the dojo didn't have a bathroom.
Right, it was Sensei's
private office. But I used it anyways because I have to clean it. So I know how to use this bathroom. But no one thought of me. They didn't bring me anything to eat. They didn't bring me anything to drink. They didn't check to see if I was okay. Nothing. They just said, okay, ready to go. So that level of mental,
training,
emotional, physical abuse is something that I don't do to my own students. Today, if someone needs to stay and do something, whatever, I always make a deal. During our seminar, once we had to do something where I think someone had to stay because people were coming that didn't have a key. Mm-hmm. And so this person had to stay during the lunch break. And I said, let's make a deal. You stay. We will either bring you back food or you can go and eat during the next class. And the person said, actually, would it be cool if I just stayed for that class but then left early? And I said, deal.
Yeah.
And that person wins because they wanted to leave early. I won. I got someone to stay and open the door. But I didn't just go, you will do this and this and this and just walk away from it.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe in that. It was so rude when they did it to me. I was like,
don't want to do that
walking
again.
all these people in Bourbon. Oh man, that was the best lunch ever. And you're like,
jerks.
You know. Or another crazy story once. I mean, now that it's story time, it was really hot. It was like 110 degrees, and we had to do these demonstrations.
Was this at the old dojo?
Yeah, but we had to do a demonstration outside the dojo. And so it was at this Buddhist temple. It was like over 110 degrees, and it was so hot. We have to go there early. We had to erect this metal stage, get it all set up. We had to come back. We had to come back to the dojo, do 2 hours of class, go back, do demonstrations. Super hot, super tired. It's really hot. At the end of the thing, Sensei goes, you guys have to break the stage down. Height. So a bunch of us were breaking the stage down. And then, it's super, it's
really
over
hot.
110 degrees. It's like, we're just dying. It's so hot. All the students are working. And then Sensei and a couple other students walk up and they're eating shaved ice. What are you guys doing? It's taking so long. Got the fruit punch stain on their face. And I looked over and I immediately got angry. Because it was so hot. And I said, I'm going to get a snow cone when we're done. We're done. We run over the snow cone place.
It's closed.
I almost flipped out. But see, like, to me, that was a huge faux pas by a teacher. Because by Western standards, or maybe even Eastern standards, the teacher always eats last. A general always eats last.
Yeah.
Right? And then here these guys are eating the shaved ice going, why are you guys taking so long? No, you should do it like this. And I was like,
Yeah, not good.
Today, I would never do that.
Yeah.
Because it was done to me, I know today, I don't do that.
Yeah.
I would always be in the trenches and sending someone, get 5 shaved ice while we do this. Make sure they don't close on,
Well, it sounds like, that from your perspective, starting where we started with this question, even the person asking the question seems to acknowledge that this is probably a practice that doesn't exist in reality very much anymore.
It still exists. I see it. I don't know. Let's see. 27 years ago, I was at Homa Dojo. So I guess maybe it doesn't exist anymore. And there was the Shihan who, when he does...
Unnamed.
I don't even know his name. I know what he looks like. When he does Tenkan, as he comes over the top, he kicks out your foot and you do a forward roll. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's super, super smooth. And so I was watching, like, oh man, that's smooth. He's going around the room doing it to what I would imagine are his own students. And then he gets to this girl, kicks out her leg, she gets swept and just falls down. She stands up, he just looks at her, doesn't say a word, and just goes wham across the face.
Really?
She gets up, boom, takes forward roll, no problem. And you go, damn. I was like this. I was like,
that's cold-blooded.
Hardcore. And in my mind, I was all, I hope he doesn't do it to me because I don't think he can sweep my leg. My legs are too big.
Oh, shoot.
But then later on in that same trip, there was this old man. I can't remember what his name is. His name's Yama something. And he wore like this Japanese underwear, which is kind of like linen. That
I know what they
around.
look like. Sure.
And every morning I would see him there. And he would do this thing where he would Tenkan. In between classes, he would throw people around. And he would do this thing where he does Tenkan. And then he goes like this with his... He stops and he's going like this with his finger. And then he goes like that and then you roll. And in my mind, I was like watching and I was like, what is that?
Okay.
So a couple days later, he goes, like that.
At you.
And then he goes, does it. He goes, and then his finger's like this. And I just go, and I just like, look at his finger. And then he just goes, whap across my face. And then I just like rolled, hey. And then he did it again and I just rolled. So everybody.
He just was doing like this and then pointing you in the direction he wanted you to roll?
Yeah. And then he was like, dirt. And then I didn't go and he just went, bam, across the face. And I was like, okay. And then,
so the technique was just like a mental,
like a Tenkan.
A mental Tenkan?
It was like a Tenkan, and then he stops turning, and then his hand is still turning, and then he goes like that, and you roll. And he's old school, so he's probably like an old sensei student because he's so old. He's wearing like the Japanese underwear.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, but that's the thing. He went, I didn't go, and he just went bam, and then when he did the technique again, do you think I rolled?
Yeah.
Yeah, I rolled.
Wow.
And then I just stayed away from him. Like, I was like, you know, like, what? I'm not going to.
What were his other techniques like you didn't see?
I didn't see. But, you know, he was really old and he barely moved his feet.
And he was like, you're going to do my kemi.
I do kino nagare. Don't you feel it? No, I don't feel it, you know. Because I'm not like that.
That is a nutty story.
Like, Furuya Sensei never hit me.
Right.
But he did atemi me a number of times.
Yeah. Aggressive.
So one time, Furuya Sensei wrote this book called The Tao of Aikido that we never published. And it was like 120 rolls of film. And it was a technique book. And then, so he was doing this kung fu fade into atemi iriminage. You go, okay, David, try it. So then I throw like a hook, he parries it, and then boom, in the forward roll. So he goes, you know how to throw a hook, right? And I go, yeah, I know how to box. So I like throw this hook, he parries it, and then he goes like to my face, and I was like this, wham, right in the face. Oh, he's like, no, you got to roll out of it. Okay. But he was doing it so smoothly and fast that I couldn't react to it. So I was like, and then like after he hit me like 5 or 6 times, he's like, oh, never mind. I'll use somebody else. So he has hit me with atemi, but Sensei never hit me.
Right.
I did see him hit other people.
He wasn't hitting you. He was just doing the technique.
Oh yeah, but I seen him hit. I seen him slap people. You know, but like one time we were doing like the Aikiken, I think one where you fade back like this.
Yeah.
And I was doing something wrong, and he's like, "No, you got to protect your center line. You got to." And I was just like, "I don't even know what he's talking about." And then he parried, and then skied me right here.
Oh yeah, I know that story.
And then I went like that, and then immediately when he did, he's like, "Bam!" like that. I went, "Am I dying? Am I dying?" And he was like, "You're fine." I was like, "Oh," but it made me hiccup. He got so deep. I went, like that, and I was like, am I dead? Am I going to die? Because it was so smooth, fluid, and then he had to have penetrated at least an inch or two. Because it made me hiccup. It made me go, like that.
That's really scary.
And I was like, oh, I'm dead. And he's like, you're fine, and just walked away. And I was all...
The only, like, I saw 2 things. The one that I remember the most in terms of, like, physical punishment, I was only late... The only time I ever walked in late in the Iaido, one time in my entire life, was very early on in my Iaido days. I live in Orange County, so it's like an hour drive, 45 minutes early in the morning. But it was one of those things like I wasn't really paying attention, and like Sensei would always say, like, you have to leave yourself extra time because you're far away. And of course, I was driving, and whatever freeway I took, there was an accident. It was early in the morning, but still, there was a freaking accident. And so I was like 5 minutes late because there was an accident. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm late. I should have just gone to breakfast. I learned my lesson, but I was like, better be late than not show up. Not a good idea. So I walk in, and I'm trying to slink my way. Like trying to be like with the wall, right?
Dude, don't mind me.
And I'm trying to slink my way in, and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, crap. And so he's like, go change. So I like, go change. I come down, and I'm trying to sling my way. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just changing. He's like 1,000 saburi. And I'm like, oh, my God, 1,000 saburi. So I get there, and I'm doing it, and I'm like 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, and I'm around 600, and now my arm, it's like I really feel like my arms are going to fall off. And at around 650, he's like, you're too slow. And he's like, get in the class. And I'm going to tell you, like, if he hadn't rescued me from like the 650, 700, like that really felt like physical punishment. And I know like 500 is like, you can do 500 in class, but you know, I was rushing. I had artificially elevated heart rate, you know, when you're nervous. Yeah. And so like it felt worse than it was. But that was the last time I ever walked into an Iaido class late. I will never walk in.
Well, yeah, you learned your lesson, right? Yeah. He created adherence, but with corporal punishment.
Right.
You know, some of the things that Sensei used to do was make people sit seiza on the wood.
Oh my God, yes.
Prisoner style, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you're like my knees. Well,
remember he did that in an intensive class where he lectured for like 35 minutes, and we're all sitting there, and then he's like, Iriminage, Shomanuchi Iriminage. And people are like stumbling, trying to get up because we've been sitting seiza for like 35 minutes.
Not me, man. Because of these corporal punishments, you develop these techniques.
Right, to adjust.
And one of my techniques was every day I sat seiza 35 minutes. or 30 minutes every day, so that so then when he do stuff like that, I'd be like,
there's no problem.
No problem.
It's interesting. It's like I actually find it easier to sit seiza than cross-leg for some reason.
Yeah, see, you sit up more upright.
Yeah.
When I was first a student, in the 90s, maybe my first or second week, the Boy Scouts came as we're teaching class. So then Sensei stops, we're all sitting seiza, and just starts talking about Japanese culture, showing them all these things, and everybody's just sitting seiza.
For a long time.
For like probably 40 minutes. And the whole time I was like, no one's falling out. Nobody's like sitting cross-legged, and I was like, oh no.
It's
and like the whole time I'm just like white knuckling
it.
Get out of here, you little punks. And then finally, like, they leave, and then says like, okay, go. And they're like,
people can't get up.
Yeah, nobody. I mean, people, but not one person fell out of seiza.
Wow.
Went cross-legged. Everyone sat full seiza. The whole had to have been 40 minutes.
He was really intense about that.
But he wasn't intense. It wasn't a thing he said, like, you can't do that.
No, he didn't. But people really tried.
Well, yeah, because he was talking about, he's telling these kids about self-discipline and being a martial artist, and you're like, well, I guess I can't sit cross-legged. Yeah. And then we're just sitting, and mind you, I'd only been doing Aikido for like a week or two.
Oh my God, Sensei.
Yeah, so I didn't even, I'm going to die. I was like a 19-year-old kid. I'm going to die.
But see, that's really interesting. You're talking about physical abuse, but I'm not sure it really was totally physical abuse. Because people really, that was, like, I always felt like if we had to sit seiza, I mean, it was harder when I was younger, but like now after doing it for 30 years, like you can sit, well, some people can't, some people can, but like, once you've been doing it for a long time, it actually becomes easy.
Well, that's because the spectacles that you currently wear are from 1990.
Right.
Which is, this is not corporal punishment. This is training.
Right.
No big deal.
Right.
But today, people they take off those spectacles, they put these spectacles, and they go, that's abuse.
Right.
Oh my God.
Right.
Right. Like, had that, one time Sensei was really, really mean to me. Right. Because, well, he wasn't mean. Like, so in 1999, Furia Sensei kicked me out for being too violent. Too violent and too mean. Because, I mean, literally, I punched every person's ticket that trained with me. Man, woman, child, old, fat, young, tall, didn't matter. Rough, right? So I got kicked out. And so, you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
And I spent the whole 2 years being kicked out, still paying dues every month, reflecting. Therapy, working on my stuff.
Yeah.
And when I came back, the only thing Furia Sensei ever talked to me about that situation, he said, that was a big risk that I took.
Kicking you out.
Didn't say anything else. That was a big risk. I took a big risk doing that to you. Because that punishment, right, he had to say no. But that was the thing which set me straight. And that's why when people ask me, how long have you been doing Aikido? I said, I've been involved in Aikido for 30 some odd years.
Right, because you weren't doing it.
Well, I wasn't doing it, but I had to pay dues every month. He said, I was told if you want to quit, just stop paying dues. We'll figure it out. We'll figure from that you've quit. And so every month I had to pay dues for 18. I was actually out 18 months.
Jesus.
And then when Sensei asked me to come back, I told them I'm not ready to come back. Because I still had too many violent tendencies. And they said, I'll just come back. And it really changed me, though. And that's where he said, like, I took a real risk doing that to you.
Did you feel like you were less violent when you came back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I worked on myself. And then people would come up to me afterwards, like, oh, man, since you've been gone, I've been holding the fort down, beating people up. And I'd be like, oh, my God, please.
Shoot.
Whoa, no. Or someone.
Did you do any martial arts during those 18 months?
Not really.
Not really.
No. I went to one Aikido dojo because I was allowed to go wherever I wanted. He said, do whatever you want to do. Go to another Aikido dojo, go do this, do whatever. Just don't do it here.
What Aikido dojo did you study at?
I don't want to say what Aikido.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So did you box during that time, or did you practice on your
own? I always boxed because that's how I stayed in shape.
Yeah. So
I'd always spend time hitting the bag. But when I came back, I started to see the error of my ways. Like one student said to me in the dressing room, like, I want to say it's that week or even that day that I came back, he said, I just want to thank you. And I was like,
what?
For what? He said, before you got kicked out, every day when I trained with you, I would go home and cry. And I was like, whoa, dude, I'm so sorry. He's like, no. You taught me what real Aikido is. I was like, oh, I was in a bad place, man. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. But someone told me that. And I was like, and so by seeing stuff like that, you're like, oh, I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
Right. And so Sensei's punishment, it really helped me.
Yeah.
But then, he had kicked several people out of the dojo that never really, it didn't change them at all. But that's this idea, right? As we come to the end of this podcast, is like, is corporal punishment necessary? Does it work? Yeah, it works. Is it necessary though? Is it effective? I don't really know. Like I said, putting on the spectacles of 1990, yeah, it works. Putting on the spectacles of 2022, absolutely not.
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
Yeah, because it's not, people aren't training. We were trained to be professional Aikidoists. We were trained to be we were training, it was unspoken, but we were trained to be warriors.
Yeah.
And so you needed that level, right? It was a badge of honor. Yeah, Sensei beat me up or Sensei slapped me. Yeah, part of the group, right? And that's like whenever people would get in trouble and Sensei, they were in the doghouse with Sensei, I would always go up to them and be like, welcome to the club, man.
Yeah.
First time, won't be the last time, but yeah, welcome to the club. But that's that thing, like those punishments in those days, it created this immediacy, this level of training, which I don't even know if I can create without it. But then I don't have the heart to do it to people. And I don't even think Free Sensei had the heart. Because I think in the end, it didn't do any good to have been that way.
No. Well, and it's, like you said, we won't know until the end which one works better. But I think that, my take on this all is that you especially as the leader and the teacher and everyone that has to follow you, is that there's an ethical and a moral component of this. Is what kind of person do you want to be,
or what type of person do I want to make?
Both.
Well, but then the thing is that, it's like this, as Mr. Miyagi used to say, there's no such thing as bad students, only bad teachers.
Yeah.
Teachers say, student do. So if I'm a bad person, or if I'm, beating up people, my students will be that way because they think that's okay and they're going to copy me.
Yeah.
But today I understand that that's wrong. Maybe it's being a parent, maybe it's being a doctor, or whatever it is. That's violence.
Yeah.
And that is not what I'm trying to teach you people. I'm trying to get you all to be better, kinder, more compassionate, more social. Think of other people. How do I do that? By beating you up. And therefore, the slap, today, it only creates followers and adherents. And so I'm pretty sure that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because the success rate in Free Sensei's generation is super, 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 super low, 99.999%. Slapping or no slapping, it's still close to zero, right?
Yeah.
So it's 99% of those people aren't going to make it. So slapping or not slapping them, it's probably not going to work. Because you might even be able to do better by not slapping them.
Right.
Because as they would say, slapping them is, think about it from that Bronx Tale. He asks the gangster, is it better to be feared or loved? And the gangster says feared. But it's not. It's better to be loved. It's better to the person feel strongly in their heart that you help them. And then that's what gains adherence. As opposed to,
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think that this is, not to fall back into earlier podcasts, because I know we're trying to wrap this up, but this is very much, I think, about the trajectory that Aikido really has tried to be about in the last 60 years, and making a difference as a martial art.
And so that's this idea of that it comes back to you and your own self-discipline to be a good student, not external discipline, which causes me to be a good student. Because the cat's away, the mice will play, right? Yeah. And so you're only good as long as the teacher's standing there.
Right.
And so that's why I don't think corporal punishment works in a modern martial arts school. Battle might be a different story, but nobody here is going to battle.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
It's, I mean, I look, I think this has been a really great question.
Yeah.
And, you know, even though we've hopefully evolved past using physical abuse or physical strikes, as long as there is conflict, we are going to have to confront the use of force.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing. It all depends on what your training is designed to do.
Yeah.
You know, and what the legal authorities will allow you to do.
No. Definitely not. Well, I think it's a good spot to wrap up. It's great to get 2 podcasts in so far this year and to be on a good start. You know, hopefully more listeners will send us in more questions.
Love to answer questions.
Please send us in your questions. We look forward to answering and doing more podcasts in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.